Hello everyone, this is Sunny Buck. Today we're gonna read Underpants and the Big Bad Battle of the Bionic Figure Boy Part 1, The Night of the Nasty Nostril Nuggets. Hi everyone and welcome to another one of our disastrous misadventures. Before we get started, check out this comic book to get the full scoop on our story so far. Jordan Herald proudly presents The Awful Truth About Underpants, a Treehouse comic production. Once upon a time, there was two cool kids named Jordan Herald. We the man, me too. They had a mean old principal named Mr. Krupp. Grr, hey boss, blah blah blah. One time, Mr. Krupp punished Jordan Herald. You have to obey my orders. So they got a 3D hypno ring and hypnotized him. No way, you must obey us. Okay. They made him think he was a superhero. You're now Captain Underpants. Yes, master. It was supposed to be a joke. Tra-la-la, ha-ha-ha. But it got carried too far. I will go fight crime now. Way too far. Hey, come back here, Bob. Tra-la-la. Then one day, he got attacked by a deadlian. Don't you hate it when that happens? Help! So George stole some superpower juice from a UFO. Ouchie! And gave it to him. Down the hatch. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Suddenly he got superpowers. Hey, I can fly now. I rule. Oh, great, bummer. Nowadays, whenever Mr. Crow hears anybody snap their fingers, snap, he turns into you-know-who. Tra-la-la. Uh-oh. Not again. And the only way you can stop him is if you pour water on his head. What the? Then he turns back into Mr. Crab. Hey, what's the big idea, buffs? So whenever you do, don't snap your finger on Mr. Crab, okay? The end. Chapter 1. George and Harold. This is George Beard and Harold Hutchins. George is the kid on the left with the tie and the flat top. Harold is the one on the right with the t-shirt and the bad haircut. Remember that now. Please wash your hands after using the toilet. George's and Harold's grades in school were much like whales in the ocean. They rarely rose above sea level. Marvin Sneedley, however, is the kid down there with the bow tie and the glasses. Always got straight A's. Because Marvin was so academically gifted, people just assumed he was a lot smarter than Jordan Harold, but that wasn't true. You see, Jordan and Harold were every bit as smart as the straightest students, but in a different way. In a way that couldn't be measured by quizzes or worksheets. Please wash your hand in the toilet. Maybe George and Harold couldn't spell very well or remember their multiplication tables. Perhaps their grammar were no good either. But when it came to saving the entire planet from the nasty forces of unrelenting evil, there was nobody better than George Beard and Harold Hutchins. It's a good thing that George and Harold were smart enough to get themselves out of trouble, because their silliness was always getting them into trouble. In fact, one time it got them into a really snotty situation. But before I can tell the story, I have to tell you this story. Chapter 2. Squishes Part 1. It was demonstration speech day in Mrs. Ribble's 4th grade English class. Every student had to give an oral report demonstrating how to do something. First up were Tim Brunskin and Steve Lubner, who demonstrated how to give a speech that they hadn't prepared for. They got a D. Next up were Jessica Gordon and Stephanie Wyckoff, who demonstrated how to cook frozen lasagna in a pop-up toaster. After the fireman left, it was Jordan Harold's turn. Harold carefully takes some charts and graphs onto the wall while George brought out a large garbage can with a toilet seat taped to the top. Ladies and gentlemen, said George, today Harold and I are going to demonstrate how to do a squishy. First, you need 2 packs of ketchup and a toilet seat. Next, said Harold as he pointed to their display chart. You must fold the ketchup pack in half and carefully place them under the toilet seat. Make sure that the pack are under those front 2 bumpy thingies on the bottom of the seat. Now, once the ketchup packs are in place, said Harold, all you have to do is wait for somebody to sit down on the toilet seat. Do we have any volunteers? Come on, said George. Who wants a squishy? Although nobody in the class wanted to sit on the toilet seat, everybody wanted to see what would happen if somebody actually did. So George grasped one side on the toilet seat, Harold grasped the other, and together they pushed down. Splat, splat! Everyone in the class were thrilled except for the 2 kids sitting directly in front of the toilet seat, who were somewhat less than thrilled. Hooray for squishies! The children shouted. Now, normally George and Harold's teacher, Mrs. Ribble, would have been very angry about this particular demonstration speech. She would have yelled on and on about imitatable behavior and how it's not nice to spray ketchup into people's underwear, but Mrs. Ribble had changed quite a bit since the last book, and now she was all about fun. Come on, kids, shouted Mrs. Ribble. Let's all run to the cafeteria and grab some ketchup packs. Squishes for everybody. Hooray! Cried the children as they bounded from their seats and dashed toward the classroom door. Not so fast, shouted Melvin Snedley, who stood blocking the door with his arms spread defiantly. You guys are so immature. Chapter 3. The Combined Ultron 2000. Melvin Snedley, the school brainiac, was not about to let anybody leave the classroom until he had given his demonstration speech. We still have 15 minutes left before lunch, said Melvin, and that's just enough time for me to demonstrate my new invention, the Combined Ultron 2000. Oh man, whined Melvin's classmates. The children all slumped back into their seats while Melvin pushed a plastic rolling cart to the front of the classroom. On top of the cart were a hamster, a small robot which Melvin had built himself, and a strange-looking contraption shaped like an ice cream cone. Today, said Melvin, I'll demonstrate how to turn an ordinary hamster into your very own bionic cyber slave. Melvin placed his pet hamster, Sulu, at one end of the cart, and his tiny homemade robot at the other end. I shall now combine this ordinary hamster with this tiny robot using the Combined Ultron 2000. Melvin picked up the Combined Ultron 2000 and turned it on. A high-pitched tone pierced the classroom air, getting higher and higher in frequency as the machine charged to full power. Melvin typed some last-minute calculations into the keyboard on the side of the Combined Ultron 2000 as his laser extractor warmed up. Suddenly, 2 streaks of red glowing light flashed onto Sulu and the tiny robot. The Combined Ultron 2000 began assimilating information on the 2 elements it was about to combine. Don't worry, kids, said Melvin. This procedure is totally painless. Sulu won't feel a thing. Finally, a computerized voice started the countdown. Combining 2 elements in 5 seconds. Combining 2 elements in 4 seconds. Combining 2 elements in 3 seconds. Combining 2 elements in 2 seconds. Combining 2 elements in 1 second. Blizzard! A burst of brilliant white light shot out of the Combined Ultron 2000 and formed a ball of energy between Sulu and the tiny robot. The hamster and the robot began to slide closer and closer together until they disappeared into the energy ball. The smell of burned matches and pickled relish filled the air as a hot blast of electric wind knocked books off shelves and sent paper flying. Suddenly there was a blinding flash of light, a quick puff of smoke, and it was all over. Melvin pulled off his goggles. No longer were a hamster and a robot sitting on the cart before him. Now the hamster and robot were one, combined at a calculator level. The words were self-contained, warm-blooded, fuzzy bionic cyborg. Eureka! Shouted Melvin. It worked! I have created a cybernetic life form! The children looked on as Melvin waved the metal detector over the hamster and the reading went off the chart. One of the children raised his hand with a question. Yes! Said Melvin enthusiastically. Can we go to the lunchroom and get our ketchup packs now? But no, screamed Melvin. Will you forget about squishes for 1 minute? I've just created the world's first cybernetic hamster, and nobody is leaving this room until I've demonstrated his undying obedience. Chapter 4. Bad Sulu. Sulu didn't seem to know that he had just undergone a groundbreaking transformation. He didn't act any different. He just wandered across the top of the plastic rolling cart, sniffing everything around him, only stopping occasionally to scratch his ears or rub his whiskers. But poor Sulu was in for a big surprise. Sulu, said Melvin, I am your master and you will obey my commands. I want you to demonstrate your new powers for the class. Do a super bionic jump across the room. Sulu did not respond. Sulu, said Melvin stern, crush that plastic rolling cart in your bare paws. Sulu did not respond. Sulu, Melvin shouted, go outside, pick up a car, and throw it across the parking lot. Sulu did not respond. Finally, Melvin reached into his book bag and took out a red ping-pong paddle he had designed especially for this occasion. Sulu, he said angrily, do as I say, or you're going to get a good spanking. This time, Sulu did respond. When he saw the ping-pong paddle, he became very frightened, and his little hamster instincts took over. Sulu jumped into the air, grabbed the ping-pong paddle in his right paw, and then yanked Melvin onto the plastic rolling cart with his left paw. The children finally stopped thinking about ketchup packs and toilets for a moment and settled in to watch the show. Chapter 5. The Incredibly Graphic Violence Chapter Part 1 in Flip-O-Rama TM. Warning. The following chapter contains graphic depictions of a mean little boy getting spanked by a bionic hamster. While this event is presented for humorous effect, the producers of this book acknowledge that hamster acts are no laughing matter. If you or someone you love has been the victim of a hamster attack, we strongly urge you to get help by seeking out a local support group in your area or by visiting www.whenhamstersattack.com. Introducing Flip-O-Rama. The problem with incredibly graphic violence is that it's hardly ever fun. Well, all that has changed since the invention of Flip-O-Rama. Check it out. Here's how it works. Step 1. First, place your left hand inside the dotted line marked left hand here. Hold the book open flat. Step 2. Grasp the right hand page with your right thumb and index finger. Inside the dotted line marked right thumb here. Step 3. Now quickly flip the right hand page back and forth until the picture appears to be animated. For extra fun, try adding your own sound effects. Flip-O-Rama 1. Pages 41 and 43. Remember, flip only page 41. While you're flipping, be sure you can see the picture on page 41 and the one on page 43. If you flip quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. Thanks for the memories. Chapter 6, The Aftermath. Although Sulu hadn't really spanked Melvin very hard, Melvin wailed and bellowed and carried on anyway. "You're a bad hamster," Melvin cried. "I never want to see you again as long as I live." Melvin ran out of the classroom sobbing. The rest of the class, including Mrs. Ribble, followed him out laughing and chanting, "Squishes, squishes, squishes." But George and Harold stayed behind to comfort the forgotten hamster. "Don't feel bad, Sulu," said George. "Melvin is really meanie." "Yeah," said Harold. "Do you want to come home with us? You can live up in our treehouse." Sulu jumped onto Harold's shoulder and licked his face. Then he jumped over to George's shoulder and licked his face too. "I think we're just adopted bionic hamsters," said Harold. So George tucked their new pal into his shirt pocket, and the three friends went off to lunch. Chapter 7, Mr. Crop. About that very same day, the school principal, Mr. Crop, came marching into the office in a particularly full mood. He stopped beside Miss Andrew's desk, huffing and puffing. "Where's my coffee at it?" he shouted. "Get it yourself, Tubby," Miss Andrew shouted back. "Out on your lift today, woman," Mr. Crop growled. "I just want my coffee and I want it now." "Well, get me a cup too while you're at it," Miss Andrew growled back. "Ugh!" screamed Mr. Crop in frustration as he grabbed the newspaper and headed for the faculty restroom. Miss Ribble was standing beside the restroom door, smiling and trying very hard not to laugh. "What are you looking at?" Mr. Crop snorted as he pushed his way past Miss Ribble and slammed the restroom door behind him. Inside the restroom, you could hear the faint sound of a belt buckle jangling, a zipper unzipping, some clothes rustling, and finally, splat, splat. "What the?" screamed Mr. Crop from inside the restroom. "I've got ketchup in my underwear!" In a few moments, the door of the faculty restroom flew open. "I'm going to get Jordan Harold for this," Mr. Crop screamed. "They didn't do it," laughed Miss Ribble. "I did. It's called a squishy. It's the latest fad." "Yeah, right, very funny," said Mr. Crop. "Now, where are those two kids? I just know they're responsible." As Mr. Crop headed for the cafeteria, he noticed that he wasn't the only person to fall victim to the dreaded squishies. All through the hallway, angry first, second, third, fifth, and sixth graders were complaining about ketchup stains on their pants, socks, legs, and underwear. Mr. Crop stormed into the cafeteria and headed for the fourth graders' table. "Jordan Harold," shouted Mr. Crop, "I've got ketchup in my underwear because of you too, and so do half of the kids in this school." "We didn't do it," said Harold. "Yeah," said a few of the other fourth graders. "Jordan and Harold are innocent." "Oh, no, they're not," said a voice from the other end of the table. It was Melvin Snidely, besides belonging to school brainiac. Melvin was also famous for being the school's tattletale. "Jordan Harold taught everybody a trick today where you put ketchup packs under a toilet seat and make it spray on people's legs," Melvin reported proudly. "Thank you, Melvin," said Mr. Crop. He turned to Jordan Harold and pointed at the cafeteria door. "Mr. Beard and Mr. Hutchins, out." Chapter 8. The comic is mightier than the spitball. George and Harold were sent straight to the detention room. "Man," said Harold, "Melvin is such a tattletale. Somebody ought to teach him a lesson." "And we're just the guy to do it," said George. So George and Harold created an all-new comic book featuring everybody's favorite tattletale Minnie, Melvin Snidely. When they were done, the two boys sneaked out of the detention room to run up copies of their latest work and sell them in the hallway. The new comic book was a great success. Everybody loved it. Well, everybody but Melvin Snidely, I should say. As Melvin walked to his last class of the day, he noticed small groups of students in the hallway reading comics together and giggling. Normally, this was enough to make Melvin run straight to the principal's office and tell on everyone for unsupervised reading, which were strictly forbidden. But today, Melvin noticed something strange. The comic reading students were pointing and laughing at him. "What?" said Melvin. "What's wrong? What are you guys laughing at?" Melvin looked around the hallway desperately. Everybody was laughing. Everybody were pointing, and it was driving Melvin crazy. He marched over to a group of second graders, grabbed the comic book out of their hands, and looked at the cover. Melvin was furious. "You guys are so immature!" shrieked Melvin. He quickly darted off to read the comic in peace, but everywhere he ran, he came across more pointing and more laughing. Finally, Melvin thought of the one place he could read the comic in private. He went into the boys' bathroom, locked himself in one of the stalls, and sat down to read. Splat, splat! As Melvin sat reading, his legs dripping with ketchup, he became angrier and angrier. "I'm gonna get George and Harold," Melvin vowed. Chapter 9, Captain Underpants and the Terrifying Tale of the Tattle Turned to Thousand. By George Beard and Harold Hutchins. Captain Underpants and the Terrifying Tale of the Tail Turned Thousand by George Beard and Harold Hutchins. Once upon a time there was a dumb kid named Melvin who was a big tattletale. "I'm telling, keep off the grass." Everywhere he went he caused grief and misery. "I'm telling, no skateboarding." Until one day, "I'm telling, crash. Hey cops, that guy just robbed the bank." "Gee, thanks kid. You are under arrest." "Hey kid, you solved the crime of the century." And so, Daily News' dumb kid is a hero. Everybody loves Melvin. Melvin had become so popular that he decided to run for mayor. Melvin for mayor. Vote for Melvin. "I'm telling, Melvin for mayor, my hero." He won in a landslide victory. Daily News dumb kid became mayor. "Congratulations, you're the youngest mayor ever." "Yes, and I'm going to make some big changes." Soon, Mayor Melvin made a bunch of dumb new laws. No humming, no smiling, no talking, no reading signs, no wet dress, no stinky feet, no marveling at nature, no barfing, no stuffing to smell the roses. And people were getting arrested left and right. "You're under arrest." "But I didn't do anything." "Busted." "No saying, but I didn't do anything." And they all got sent to jail. Man's jail, lady jail, kid jail, baby jail, dog jail, cat jail, frog jail. Ha ha! Suddenly, Mayor Melvin, all the jails are full. I will build a big robot jail and catch those lawbreakers myself. So he built the Tattle Turned to Thousand. Clang, clang. Soon, Mayor Melvin was off catching lawbreakers. No old ladies. "That'll teach you." Then Melvin headed for the school. "Help, the Tattle Turned to Thousand just ran across the soccer field and squishes the gym teacher." "Oh no, we just planted that grass. This looks like a job for Crash, Captain Underpants." "What's up, Bob? Look out!" "Off. You're going to jail for bursting the roof." But Captain Underpants was faster than a speeding waistband. No zipping. Zip. More powerful than boxer shorts. No crashing through signs. Crash. And able to leave tall buildings without getting a wedge. No using the same joke over and over. Captain Underpants wanted to fight the robot, but he didn't want to hurt the people inside. Then he got an idea. Prawn juice factory. Prawn juice crash. Hey, what the? We're free, bonk. Soon there was nobody left inside the Title 20,000 except for Melvin. Uh-oh, I'm telling. And so, hooray for Ceptinonderpants! Jail for dumb kids. You guys are so immature. Then, everybody got set free. Tra-la-la. We're free and stuff. Yay, yiffee, goo-goo, woof. The end. Treehouse Comic Inc. Chapter 10. Mad Mr. Melvin. Melvin was furious. He ripped the comic book in half and tossed it over his shoulder. Then he washed his hands in the toilet and stormed out of the restroom. I'm gonna get George and Harold for that, said Melvin. I'm gonna teach them a lesson they'll never forget. After school, Melvin grabbed his combined of 20,000 and headed home. Melvin's mother and father were both busy working on a top-secret government experiment when Melvin walked in the front door. Hello, son, said Melvin's father. How was your day at school? Terrible, said Melvin. No one in school has sufficient respect for my beautiful mind. Those dull-witted, lame-brained, gum-chewing idiots are more impressed with comic books than they are with the wonders of science. But I shall teach them. I shall teach them all. Ha 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 ha. That's nice, honey, said Melvin's mom. Melvin marched up to his room to begin building a brand new superpowered robot. But when he opened his bedroom door, he saw the family's pet cat, Dandelion, sleeping quietly on his bed. Hey, Melvin screamed. What are you doing in my room, you stuffy cat? You know I'm allergic to you. Now get out and achoo! Stay out! After a few hours, Melvin had built his newest and most powerful robot ever, which had 3 sets of interchangeable laser eyeballs, micro-hydraulic jump-electronic legs, super-zongo lighting atomo arms, and an extendable octoclaw rib cage, and was powered by 3 separate twin-turbo 9000 SP5 Kung Fu titanium lithium alloy processors, which were all built into a virtually indestructible flexo-harmonic endoskeletron that had the power to punch through cinder blocks, crush steel and add spice like grasp, and plows mercilessly through poorly written run-on sentences. It could also slice bagels. That ought to do the trick, said Melvin, whiffing his nose on the tissue. Now all I had to do is achoo! Combine my body with this bionic robot, and I shall be the most powerful boy who achoo! Ever lived. Chapter 11. Melvin's Fantasy. As Melvin set up the combiner turn 2000 and made the preferred adjustments, he imagined what his life would be like as the world's first bionic boy. He imagined himself walking into school the next day, his arms swinging confidently as he crashed through the classroom wall. The girls would swarm as Melvin talked for hours about the amazing world of science. Miss Rebel would probably let Melvin sit at her desk from now on, because Melvin's new bones of steel would be too massive to fit into an ordinary children's chair. Maybe Mr. Crab would invite the governor to visit the school so he could show off his smartest and most powerful student. If so, the governor would probably declare a new holiday, National Melvin's Needly Day, a day when kids all over the world would get extra homework and pop quizzes to honor the glorious name of Melvin. But the best part of all would be George and Harold's reaction. They would be so terrified by Melvin's incredible size and strength. They'd drop to their knees and beg for mercy, and Melvin would spare them only if they agreed to be his slaves for all eternity. They'd have to carry his books, sharpen his pencils, and be his personal footstools during each class. Life is gonna achoo rule, said Melvin. Chapter 12. The Night of the Nasty Nostril Nuggets. Melvin turned on the combined L-turn 2000. A high-pitched tone pierced the air, getting higher and higher in frequency as the machine charged to full power. Oops, said Melvin as he quickly turned the dramatic effects setting to off so he wouldn't disturb his parents. Silently, the machine continued to charge as Melvin entered calculations to account for his clothing glasses. When the laser extractor had finally warmed up, Melvin stepped in front of the combiner turn 2000, standing perfectly still beside his new robot. Suddenly, two streaks of red glowing light flashed onto Melvin and the robot as the combiner turn 2000 began assimilating information on the two elements it was about to combine. Finally, a computerized voice started to count down, combining two elements in 5 seconds. Melvin stood perfectly still. Combining two elements in 4 seconds. Melvin's nose began to switch, combining two elements in 3 seconds. Suddenly, Melvin felt an uncontrollable urge. He cupped his hands over his mouth and nose as his eyes squeezed closed involuntarily, combining two elements in 2 seconds. Achoo! Melvin looked down into his hands, which were now glistening with mucus and crusty chunks of semi-dried buglets. Instantly, the combiner turn 2000 began to recalculate the elements in its laser sights, combining 3 elements in 1 second. 3 elements? Melvin screamed in horror. What a third element! Quickly, Melvin's eyes darted around the room, searching for any new element that might have accidentally made its way into the sights of the laser extractor. What's the third element? He screamed again. Then he looked down into his crusty, dripping, phlegm-filled hands. Uh-oh, said Melvin as a blinding burst of white light enveloped him. Blizzard! Chapter 13. The next day. The next day, Melvin didn't show up for school on time. Nobody really seemed to notice, though, because all the children were excited about show and tell. Almost everyone had brought in really lame stuff like books or awards, but George and Harold had something that was totally cool. Everybody remembers Sulu from yesterday, right? Said George. Well, we took him home to live with us in our treehouse, and we taught him the greatest trick, said Harold. The two boys carried Sulu over to the classroom window and opened it up. Harold pulled a large watermelon out of his book bag and showed it to Sulu. Okay, Sulu, said George, show everybody your new trick. In one swift motion, Sulu placed his mouth onto the watermelon and shoved the entire thing into his lap cheek. The fourth graders were stunned. No, said Harold. That's not a trick. The trick is what happens next. Sulu looked out the window and eyed the dead tree at the far end of the empty playground. Sulu began to chew up the watermelon, then puckered his tiny hamster lips and spit. The watermelon seeds fired out of Sulu's mouth, hitting their target with expert precision. In no time at all, the dead tree at the end of the playground was reduced to a pile of twigs and sawdust. The class cheered as George and Harold patted their amazing little bionic body.
George and Harold didn't think that anybody could beat their show-and-tell display, but they were wrong, because at that very moment, Marvin Sneedley was drifting down the hallway toward the classroom door. Marvin hadn't brought anything for show-and-tell. Marvin was the show-and-tell. Chapter 14. The unnecessarily disgusting chapter. Notice, the following chapter is extremely gross. To avoid nausea, projectile vomiting, or other gastrointestinal unpleasantries, please refrain from eating for at least 1 hour before reading this chapter. You won't want to eat after reading it, let me assure you. All of the fourth graders were cheering and patting Sulu as the classroom door slowly opened. A greenish, glistening behemoth entered the room, filling the air with the sounds of grinding metal gears and wet, gooey, bursting bubbles. Some of the girls screamed, some of the boys did too. "You guys are so immature," said the horrible beast. At once the children recognized the terrifying creature that stood before them. "Marvin!" they cried. "Yes, it's me," gargled the wet, jiggling monster angrily. His eyes and nose were dripping with warm, greenish custard like mucus. His robotic arms were caked with massive globes of crispy, shimmering snot, and as he turned to close the classroom door behind him, part of his hand came off the doorknob. It oozed slowly down the door, leaving behind a chunky trail of moist excretion. Marvin squished and sloshed as he jiggled over to his chair. Each gooey footstep coated the floor with a foamy trail of slime, and everything he touched became wet and encrusted with warm, bubbly syrup phlegm. When Marvin sat down, generously, helpings of yellowish pudding like goo slowly dripped down the chair, collecting into creamy gelatinous puddles beneath him. The puddles themselves were slightly transparent and speckled with thick, shimmering nose hairs and dark red chunks of coagulated blood which— "All right already!" yelled George to the narrator. "Enough with the descriptions! You're making us all sick!" "Thank you, George," said Miss Ribble. "Now, Marvin, why don't you tell us all what happened to you?" "Well," said Marvin, "I tried to combine myself with a bionic robot last night, but I accidentally sneezed at the last second." "So you got combined with a robot and boogers?" asked George. "Yeah," said Marvin, "but don't worry, I'm building a separate 10,000, which will reverse the effects and turn me back into a boy again. It'll just take 6 months to finish." "6 months?" said Harold. "Hey, cellular separation is a highly complex procedure," said Marvin. "It's not like building a robot. It takes time. You should try taking the batteries out of the combiner thingy and putting them in backwards," suggested George. "That might reverse the effect." Marvin rolled his thick, bubbling crust covered in flared eyeballs. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," he goggled. Chapter 15. The New Marvin. You might think that turning into a bionic booger boy was the worst thing that could ever happen to a kid, but it wasn't all bad. Believe it or not, there was actually a positive side to being a lumbering loogie lad. For instance, Marvin now won every football game he played, because no one wanted to tackle him, and when he served a volleyball, nobody on the other team would dare to hit the ball back. Besides being the school's new sports star, there were other perks too. Marvin never had to wait in line at the drinking fountain anymore. Now he had his own personal drinking fountain because, well, would you use a drinking fountain after Bionic Booger Boy had glowered all over it? I don't think so. All of the special attention that Marvin was receiving made some of the other kids a little jealous, but not George and Harold. Considering the many evil villains that George and Harold had been battling all years, the two boys were just grateful that Melvin hadn't turned himself into a gigantic, terrifying beast with plans to destroy the earth. It could be a lot worse, said Harold. At least Melvin's not a terrifying evil villain. Yeah, you're right, said George. I can't think of anything that could turn Melvin into a terrifying evil villain. Chapter 16. The Cold and Flu Season. Soon it was autumn, and the new season brought with it many changes. Crisp, chilly air, early morning frost, and bright colorful leaves. But with the beauty of autumn came another change that wasn't quite so welcome, the cold and flu season. All through Jar Hall Elementary School, people were getting sick. The hallways were filled with runny noses, sneezing mouths, and itching bodies. Snip, achoo, snip, snip. And unfortunately, one of those noses, mouths, and bodies belonged to Melvin Sneedley. Every time Melvin sneezed, thousands of tiny droplets shot out of his mouth, spattering the chalkboard with a thin layer of foamy, glistening yellowish-green tapioca like mucus. Don't forget to cover your mouth, Melvin dear, said Miss Ribble. Achoo! Oh, sorry, said Melvin. Sorry. He put his hand over his mouth and sneezed again. This time the explosion of air from his stifled sneeze blew over large wet globes of his body, which sprayed over the entire classroom. It was as if somebody set a giant firecracker inside a bucket of green paint. The warm, smelly goo smoked into people's hair, splattered onto their clothes, and seemed to drench every square inch of the room. On second thought, Melvin, said Miss Ribble, don't cover your mouth next time. Now, who wants a cookie? Chapter 17. The Field Trip. The next day, for some strange reason, Mrs. Ribble was out sick with a cold. Mr. Crop was filling in as the substitute teacher, and as usual, he was very angry. What the heck is going on in this room? He yelled. What's with all the raincoats and umbrellas? Then Melvin sneezed. A few moments later, Mr. Crop returned to the classroom with fresh clothes, a raincoat, and an umbrella. All right, everybody, he shouted. Today is field trip day. Miss Androff and I are taking you all to Snoddy Bruce Tissue Factory to see how blue rags are made. The word tissue made Melvin jump. No, he cried in a panic. Me no like tissues. An eerie silence fell over the classroom. Everybody looked at Melvin in shock. Did Melvin just say, me no like tissues? Asked Harold. Yeah, said George. I've never heard him misuse an objective pronoun before. Who does he think he is? Frankenstein? Chapter 18. Things get bad. In a few hours, the fourth graders were all packed into a hot, stinky factory, listening to a boring speech about how trees are turned into tissues, or something like that. Nobody was paying attention, really, except for Melvin Sneedley, who was terrified. His whole body shook and shimmered as the tour took them down the narrow walkways of the noisy industrial plant. Finally, the tour ended at the gift shop, where the plant manager, Mr. Snowley, had a surprise for everybody. Behind this red curtain with black dots on it, said Mr. Snooty, is a free gift for each of you. Mr. Snooty pulled back the curtain to reveal a pile of sample tissue packs. Help yourselves, said Mr. Snooty. There's enough for everybody. No, screamed Melvin. Me no like tissues. Oh, don't be silly, said Mr. Snooty. Everybody loves tissues, and our tissues are extra absorbent. They really help to wipe out phlegm and mucus. No, screamed Melvin again. Tissues is bad magic. Nonsense, laughed Mr. Snoddy. He tossed a couple of sample tissue packs at Melvin. Here you go, young man, he said. Enjoy. The tissue pack flipped through the air and stuck onto Melvin's back. Melvin screamed. His eyes began to glow green as he beat his chest in anger. Suddenly, Melvin's shoulders started to bubble. His chest expanded. The flexor-grommonic still in Melvin's endoskeleton flexed and grew. His neck and head widened, and his body swelled to a height of 13 feet. Melvin grabbed the tissue pack in his massive, dripping fingers and plucked them to the ground. Don't make me angry, Melvin warned. You know like me when I'm angry. Oops, said Mr. Snoddy. You dropped your tissue pack, young fellow. Here's some more for you. Mr. Snoddy grabbed 2 giant handfuls of sample tissue packs and tossed them at Melvin. Chapter 19. Things Get Better. Frantically, Melvin sweated as the 9 new tissue packs stuck to his upper torso as if they were a swarm of stinging bumblebees. He stuffed his giant spiked feet and thrashed about violently as his hulking body doubled, then tripled in size. Melvin kicked and punched the walls of the gift shop as he let out a terrifying, blood-curdling cry. There's no need to cry, little man, said Mr. Snoddy. Here, have some more tissues to dry those tears. He tossed several more sample tissue packs at Melvin. As you might have noticed by now, Mr. Snoddy wasn't exactly the brightest bulb on the Hanukkah tree. What happened next could only be described as chaos. Once again, Melvin's massive body tripled in size. By now, Melvin was roaring and kicking and knocking over giant machines. Children screamed and ran. Mr. Snoddy thought it might help matters if he could just give Melvin some more tissues. But before he could, a drop of mucus the size of a bathtube dripped from Melvin's massive nose and splashed down on Mr. Snoddy, gluing him to the floor. Splat! George and Harold hid behind the red curtain with black dots on it as Melvin crashed through the roof of the factory. Ear-piercing roars flew out of his gigantic oozing mouth as he kicked down the walls of the factory and tossed the heavy machinery into the parking lot. Mr. Croft and Mrs. Anthrop tried their best to get the situation under control, but they weren't having much luck. "Hey, Bob," shouted Mr. Croft, "I've had just about enough of your shenanigans. You're going to be spending the afternoon in detention if you don't settle down, young man," shouted Miss Anthrop. Suddenly, Melvin reached down and grabbed Miss Anthrop in his massive metal fist. "Help me!" she screamed. "Somebody save me!" Said Mr. Croft nervously. I'll go get some help." Mr. Croft ran and hid with George and Harold behind the red curtain with black dots on it. "Hey, I thought you were going to go get some help," said Harold. "Well, not today," said Mr. Croft. "You know," said George, "there's only one person who can help Miss Anthrop now." "Who's that?" asked Mr. Croft. Chapter 20. Captain Underpants, That's Who. As much as George and Harold hated to do it, they decided that it was time to send Captain Underpants to save the day. George snapped his fingers. Suddenly, the terror and panic that Mr. Croft had been experiencing completely vanished. Snap! A wild, silly grin spread across his face as he lifted to his feet and ripped off his outer cloth and toupee. Mr. Croft's transformation into Captain Underpants was almost complete. The only thing he was missing was a cap. "Gee," he said, "I sure wish I could find a red curtain with black dots on it." "Hey," said George as he pointed to the red curtain with black dots on it. "Here's a red curtain with black dots on it." "What a remarkably unexpected coincidence," said Captain Underpants as he grabbed the latest in a series of convoluted plot devices and tied it around his neck. By this time, Melvin had stumped his way out of the factory and into the downtown area, leaving behind the twisted path the mucus-coated destruction. Captain Underpants flew into the air, following the trail of terror until he was face to face with the snot-spewing cyborg. "I order you to stop," said Captain Underpants, "in the name of all that is precious and company." Melvin did not listen. Captain Underpants had no choice but to fight the vulgar behemoth, but first he needed to see Miss Androp. Quickly our hero flew to Edith's side, grabbed her hands, and pulled firmly. The slimy plum that covered Melvin's gigantic fist was strong and gluey, but it was no match for wedgie power. Captain Underpants pulled and pulled until Miss Androp became completely dislodged with a noisy, wet, disgusting sound. Note: please feel free to make the noise, wet, disgusting sound of your choice to emphasize the intense drama of this gripping paragraph. "I'm free!" cried Miss Androp. "Let's get the heck out of here!" Suddenly, the bionic booger boy reached down and grabbed Captain Underpants by the cap. The monster held on tightly with his gigantic, gooey, robotic fingers. "Ah!" cried Captain Underpants. "He's got my cap! He's got my cap!" "Well, just untie it!" screamed Miss Androp. "Let's go, let's go!" "But I can't fight crime without my cap," cried Captain Underpants. "Forget your stupid cat!" Edith screamed. "Just save me, you idiot!" Chapter 21. You Can't Have Your Cap and Edith too. As anybody will tell you, no superhero is complete without a cap. I mean without a cap. A superhero is just a guy wearing fancy underwear, or in this case, not so fancy underwear. But Captain Underpants knew what had to be done. He reached out with his free hand and courageously untied his cap, valiantly sacrificing his aesthetic integrity to save the life of a mere mortal being. Captain Underpants and Miss Androp were now free, but they weren't safe yet. The bionic vulgar boy swung at our hero with all his might. Captain Underpants weaved around Melvin's frantic flying plan, flinging fists as he tried to find a safe place to land. Suddenly, Captain Underpants' 100% cotton-powered vision spotted George and Harold miles away. With lightning speed, he flew down to meet the boys. "George and Harold," said Captain Underpants, "you've got to keep this woman safe while I destroy that robotic slime ball." "Okay," said Harold, "but hurry up, here it comes." "Wait," cried Miss Andrew, I didn't got a chance to say thank you." She turned and kissed Captain Underpants all over his face with wet, drooly smudges. Thank you," she said between each sloppy kiss. "Yuck," said Harold. "I sure hope she doesn't thank us," said George. When Miss Andrew had finished slobbering all over Captain Underpants' face, she gave him a great big hug for good luck. "Now go get him, Tiger," she said coyly, but Captain Underpants didn't move. He just stood there, staring blankly into space. Off in the distance, George and Harold could hear the bionic figure boy approaching. Each thundering footstep brought the horrible beast closer and closer, until at last he stood towering above them, panting heavily and dripping profoundly. Miss Andrew screamed and ran away. Hurry, Captain Underpants, cried Harold. Do something. Yes, said George. Kick his hiney, kick his hiney. But Captain Underpants didn't move. He didn't fight, he didn't fly, he didn't kick anybody's hiney. In fact, the only thing he did do was get very, very angry. What the heck is going on here, Bobs? He screamed. And why am I standing here in my underwear? George and Harold didn't like the sound of that. Chapter 22. Welcome back, Crawford. If you read the comic on page 7 of this novel, then you know what happens whenever Captain Underpants gets water on his head. Unfortunately, Miss Anders's wet, slobbery kisses had produced the same effect. Captain Underpants had been turned back into Mr. Croft, and now he was about to be turned into lunch. Quickly, George and Harold began frantically snapping their fingers. Snap, 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 snap. Again and again they snapped, but Mr. Croft's face was still slimy and wet with the gooey kiss juice, and the snaps were having no effect at all. The mighty mucus monster shoved Mr. Croft into his gummy mouth and swallowed him whole. And then he came after George and Harold. "Help!" screamed George. "We're doomed!" screamed Harold. Chapter 23. Sulu Saves the Day. Halfway across the city, a plucky little hamster with bionic ears heard the terrified cries of his two best pals. Quickly, Sulu jumped out of his exercise wheel and crashed through the side of his plastic cage. Then, with a mighty leap, he bounded from the window of George and Harold's treehouse. At that very moment, Melvin was dangling George and Harold high above his mouth. "Ha, ha, ha!" laughed the bionic Frugal Boy. "Me got you at last!" "Well, goodbye, Harold," said George. "See you later, pal," said Harold. "It was fun while it lasted." Finally, Melvin let go of George and Harold. The two boys screamed as they fell face first into the gooey, gaping mouth of the swoosh. The next thing George and Harold knew, they were flying sideways at incredible speed. Everything around them was a blur of motion, except for the sight of their little buddy Sulu, who had literally grabbed them from the murky mouth of death at the very last second. "Attaboy!" cried George. "Hooray for Sulu!" cried Harold. Sulu sat George and Harold down on the roof of a distant building, then returned to the scene of the crime. He grabbed a few oversized novelty items from the tops of some warehouses and turned to face his mortal enemy. Chapter 24. The Incredibly Graphic Violence Chapter Part 2 in Flip-O-Rama TM. Warning, the following stunts were performed on closed streets by a highly trained professional hamster. To avoid injury, please do not grab oversized novelty items from the tops of warehouses and beat up giant monsters with them. Flip-O-Rama 2, pages 147 and 149. Remember, flip only page 147. While you're flipping, be sure you can see the picture on page 147 and the one on page 149. If you flip quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. Can tops keep falling on my head? Flip-O-Rama 3, pages 151, 153. Remember, flip only page 151. While you're flipping, be sure you can see the picture on page 151 and the one on page 153. If you flip quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. Yummy, 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 I got glove in my tummy. Flip-O-Rama 4, pages 155 and 157. Remember, flip on page 155. While you're flipping, be sure you can see the picture on page 155 and the one on page 157. If you flip quickly, the two pictures will start to look like one animated picture. Don't forget to add your own sound effects. A Hard Day's Fight. Chapter 25.
How to reverse the effects of Combinatron 2000 in one easy step. The bionic Figure Boy was defeated. He plopped unconscious into a giant Figure flop that spread across several city blocks and nearly 4 whole pages, as reporters surrounded his massive, oozing body. Soon, Melvin's mother and father showed up with the combined Ultron 2000. "We saw what was happening on the news," they said, "and we want the world to know that we're going to create a new machine that will reverse the process that turned our son into this monster. If we work together, it should only take a few months to build." "Why don't you guys just take the batteries out of the combiner thingy and switch them around?" said George. "Wouldn't that reverse the machine's effects?" "Well," laughed Melvin's father, "obviously you don't know anything about science, little boy. You can't expect to reverse the effects of a highly complex cellular molecularizing combinatron just by switching the batteries around. That type of thing only happens in obnoxious children's books." Said George self-consciously. "Well, why don't you just give it a try anyway?" "All right," said Mr. Sneedley, rolling his eyes and smirking. He quickly switched the batteries around and powered off the machine. "But I'm only doing this to prove a point to you kids. It's not gonna work, no way. Not in a million years. And anybody who thinks it might is complete idiot. It goes against all the popular laws of logic and science." He aimed the newly reconfigured Combinatron 2000 at his son and fired. Chapter 26. Blizzard. Suddenly there was a terrific explosion. The bionic Figure Boy burst into 3 huge chunks of glistening snot and twisted metal, which smacked onto 3 nearby buildings and stuck like glue. In the center of the explosion, surrounded by smoke, stood Mr. Crow and Melvin. "Well, what do you know?" said Mr. Sneedley. "My idea worked." George and Harold rolled their eyes. "Now, step aside, kiddies," said Mrs. Sneedley as the 2 scientists marched off to tell the reporters all about their brilliant and inspirational scientific breakthrough. But as the smoke around Mr. Crow and Melvin began to clear, it became obviously that they were not quite back to normal. Apparently, the newly reconfigured Combinatron 2000 had accidentally morphed Mr. Crow and Melvin together. "Don't worry," Mr. Sneedley told the reporters. "All I need to do is zap them on one more time. That should set everything straight." He fired up the Combinatron 2000 again and prepared to blast away. "I sure hope this separates their bodies," said George. "Me too," said Harold. Blizzard. Chapter 27. To make a long story short. It did. Chapter 25. A happy ending. "You know something?" said George. "This is the first time one of our books actually had the happy ending." "You're right," said Harold. "Usually they end with you screaming, 'Oh no,' and me screaming, 'Here we go again,' but we got lucky this time, I guess." "What do you mean, lucky?" said Mr. Crow. "It was my invention that saved the world. You guys are so immature." "Huh?" said George. "I want to see both of you bobs in my office front toe," yelled Melvin. "I'm gonna punish you boys so bad. Your kids will be born with detentions." "What?" said Harold. Suddenly a giant extendable octo-claw reached out from one of the 3 huge chunks of boogers. It grabbed the Combinatron 2000 out of Mr. Sneedley's hands and smashed it to smithereens on the ground. Mr. and Mrs. Sneedley ran away screaming as the 3 humongous robotic booger chunks came to life. Slowly they began drifting down the sides of the buildings, each one energizing itself with a single twin-turbo 9000 SP5 Kung Fu Titanium Lithium alloy processor.
As the huge booger chunks oozed closer and closer, they began sprouting strange-looking metallic eyeballs and huge menacing robotic limbs. Suddenly the three ridiculous robot boogers leaped toward George, Harold, Sulu, Mr. Croft, and Melvin. And the chase was on. "Oh no!" screamed George. "Here we go again!" screamed Harold. The end.